After one of my employees made fun of Nina, I stood up and I pointed directly at the man and I said loudly, "You are fired, leave my building now or I will have you thrown out by building security." And since I'm a genius, I darn near owned everything in my city, which means I am the boss literally. And then after all that unfortunate business, I talked to Nina and I asked her out on a date, and since I'm a very handsome and charismatic gentleman that's also funny and very charming, Nina didn't stand a chance against all that, so she ended up going home with me that night and on the same day, and she had sex with me so much and it was so good that she literally said the next morning, "I think I'm pregnant again." And then I smiled warmly and said, "Don't worry about it, everything will be fine." And she said, "That was the best night I ever had, you're so good at having sex, did any woman ever tell you that?" And then I said, "Apparently you don't know everything about me." And then she said, "Oh God, I'm sorry, I forgot about those women that sexually abused you as a child." And then I said, "It's okay because they got what they deserved in the end thanks to my quick thinking." And she said, "I'm so sorry, I forgot about all that horrible crap you've been through." And I said, "Nina, it's fine, really no one has a perfect life I guess, and if they do I'd like to meet that person," I said to Nina while smiling warmly. "And I said, you were amazing last night as well and I'd like to be your boyfriend if that's not too much trouble." And then she said, "You're kidding right, after last night? Hell yeah, I want to be your girlfriend, hell I want to marry you. Will you marry me?" And I said, "Sure, I'll marry you, Nina." And then she said, "Well, will you marry me, Andrew Winchester?" And then I said, "Yes ma'am." And then she got very excited and she giggled and squeaked cutely, and then Nina gave me oral pleasure until I came in her mouth and she swallowed all my love juice instantly. And then I made love to Nina again in every sexual position, and then Nina passed out and started snoring like a trucker, so I went downstairs and I made us both breakfast and dinner, and I actually learned how to cook like a culinary chef. And then after a few hours Nina finally came downstairs and she said, "Oh, this food smells so good." And then she started eating her food that I cooked for her and she said, "Oh, this is so delicious, oh my god baby, it's so good." And I said, "Be careful, you don't want to choke on your food." And then she drank her sweet tea and she said, "Oh my god, yes, this is so good and thank you so much." And she ate all her food very fast and I was smiling warmly the whole time, and I said, "Just relax and take your time, I will still be here, I'm not going anywhere." And then she asked me, "Did you cook all this food for me?" And I said, "Yes ma'am." And she said, "Oh, you're so sweet, thank you." And then she ran up to me and hugged me and I said, "It's no trouble really, I actually do this kind of cooking all the time because I'm a big guy if you haven't noticed." And then Nina quickly grabbed my penis and she said, "Oh, I noticed everything about you is a bit bigger." And I said, "Eventually we need to go back to work if you want to, or we could stay in here for a while." And then Nina sat down in my lap and she smiled at me and she said, "I want to stay in here for a while with you if you don't mind." And then I said, "I like the sound of that." And then Nina kissed me passionately, and for nearly 2 weeks Nina stayed with me in my mansion having sex with me, only stopping to eat, sleep and use the bathroom. Oh, she eventually had to take a shower because I mentioned her stinky body odor after a bit of time, and soon after she went back to work she went to her doctor to get a checkup, and what she feared would happen happened. Nina got pregnant with 2 twin boys, but she wasn't upset or mad or even disgusted, she wanted to have my kids and she smiled and said, "Oh well, I'm glad it's him." And then she said to herself, "I'm going to have sex with him again." And unlike the original Andrew Winchester, I'm not a psychopath or a bad man that allowed his parents and his life to break him, and I also don't abuse women unlike the original Andrew Winchester. I'm actually a good man and I know what it's like to be abused. That's why I took good care of my wife Nina and our children as they all got older. And then one day something weird happened. Nina began to get paranoid that I was seeing other women, but I wasn't, so I went to therapy with her so we could address the problem, and I was always very calm even in front of our female therapist, and our therapist noticed that I didn't have any mental health issues, but my wife Nina definitely did. She suffered from paranoid delusions and she does have real mental health issues, and my therapist said, "Your wife has real mental health issues and I'm worried about you. She could pose a threat to you and your children if her paranoid delusions continue. She might even try to kill you or your children. I'm worried about you and your family."